Today we're going to be looking at 3 ways to make your wedding films visually look better. So I've been filming weddings for about 4 years now, with 2024 being my first full-time year. I've done a lot of second shooting in the past, mainly with Isaiah K Films. Put his Instagram here. Over the last 4 years of being a wedding filmmaker, my style has evolved and I've gotten my image to a place that I really am liking how it's starting to look. And unfortunately, in the wedding videography world and wedding filmmaking world, I see a lot of people just point their camera at their couple, slap it together in the editor, and send it off, and not really care too much about how it actually looks or the story that's being told, which is kind of unfortunate. It deserves to be treated like a film, like a professional film. So the image should look professional. Also, don't mind the fact that my mic literally looks like it's wearing a beanie. I don't have a dead cat for it, so I literally just cut the tip of a sock, like the toes of a sock, off, and just use a rubber band to strap it on. It's it's kind of jank, but it's functional. It works, And we're budget filmmakers here, so we're just gonna roll with it. My first tip to getting a better looking image as a wedding videographer is just to be a genuine person. Now, let me elaborate on that, because you might be like, well, how does just being a good person and a genuine person affect the image coming out of my camera? Well, it does when you're working in the wedding field, because you're working directly with people who are not actors. They are not used to being in front of a camera. So taking the time and energy to get to know them, be a genuine person, and really build a relationship with them just creates a safe and comfortable space for them in front of your camera, because they have a relationship with you and they know you and they feel comfortable around you. So instead of meeting them for the first time on their wedding day, take the time to FaceTime them, call them, meet up with them for coffee if you can, and really try to build a genuine relationship with them, because then comes wedding day, you already know them, you're already friends with them. It makes it so much easier and so much more comfortable than to pose them well, to give them prompts. As a result of building these relationships and building these friendships with your couples, you will be able to see the difference in your image, because the people on the other side of the camera, the couple, they will be so much more comfortable and it'll look so much more natural than it would if they were strangers. So, tip number 1, be genuine, build relationships, become friends with your couples. I think it's really important. Tip number 2, treat each wedding as if it's a real film and nail your gosh dang settings. It's really easy in the wedding filmmaking world to treat each wedding as a super run and gun kind of scenario, which it is, but that doesn't mean you should skip steps or cut corners. I see a lot of people in the wedding filmmaking world not even using ND filters and just thinking that it's okay to crank your shutter, which to an extent it is, but to the trained eye, you're gonna see that unnatural motion blur, and it's not gonna feel great when you're dealing with a couple where you want things to feel really natural and you want the emotion to flow well. Having really jagged motion from cranking your shutter up to 2,000, 5,000 on a sunny day, whatever, it's not going to look smooth. It's not going to look great. Same goes for white balance. Don't shoot on auto white balance, because weddings, again, run and gun. So your environment, your situation is constantly changing, and the last thing you want is when you are shooting the ceremony and the first kiss, and the white balance decides to drop from 56 Kelvin down to 4800 Kelvin, and all of a sudden there's no way to correct that in post because your colors are changing mid-shot. Just stay consistent shooting Kelvin, shoot 5600, use ND filters, control your exposure, stay true to the shutter rule, double your frame rate, just nail your settings across the board. So if you want to know a little bit about my settings for a wedding day, here they are. I shoot on a Sony FX3. I shoot 80% of the day on 60 frames per second with a shutter speed of 125. Anything like ceremonies, speeches, first looks, those are all going to be in 24 frames per second with a shutter speed of 50. I have an ND filter on 90% of the day, mainly when we're outside. If we're inside, I'll take it off. I shoot typically at 5600 Kelvin when we're outdoors. Depending on the indoor lighting, it's usually around 5,000, maybe a little lower if we're in a really warm barn or something like that. But It takes 10 seconds to switch my Kelvin, so I don't really worry about it. And I usually shoot pretty close to wide open, usually around the 1.4, 1.8 kind of mark. I really like the depth of field. I think it brings a really nice soft look to wedding films. It keeps the emotions rich, keeps people engaged in the video. It kind of makes it feel a little bit dreamy, which is kind of cool for wedding films. So that's tip number 2, nail your gosh dang settings. Tip number 3, use filtration. Now, what do I mean by use filtration? Because that could mean a few different things. Mainly what I mean when I say use filtration is use a diffusion filter. I shoot mainly on a Sony FX3 and an FX30, primarily on Sigma 35 1.4 art, which that combo together is really, really sharp and it looks phenomenal, but to my eye, it's a little bit too perfect. And that's mainly because these lenses that most people shoot with are designed for photography and they're designed to be super sharp, where video lenses such as cinema lenses have that natural softness. They have a bit more diffusion, they have some like more milky areas, they're just a lot smoother, and they're designed for video. But there's a few drawbacks to using cinema lenses for wedding filmmaking. One, they're mad expensive, and there's times where just autofocus on a wedding day is really, really helpful. Not saying you can't shoot a full wedding day on manual, because that's what I used to do. I used to shoot fully on vintage lenses, handheld, manual, and it's just totally doable. But there are certain instances where autofocus is really helpful on a wedding day. So as a way to kind of compromise on the cost and the just availability of modern lenses such as the Sigma 35, putting a $100 diffusion filter on the front takes off the sharp edge and makes your footage look really, really nice. So for the past year or so, I've been using the Tiffin 1/4 Black Pro Mist, which is actually on my camera right now as I'm filming this video. But more recently on wedding days, I've been using this, which is the Tiffin Black Satin 1/8. 85% of the time, the 1/4 Black Pro Mist looks absolutely amazing, and I really do love the image that comes out of it. But I was finding on wedding days, there were certain times and certain lighting situations where, especially if it was like a really backlit situation, the entire image became super muddy, super washed out, and just kind of lost all of its contrast, and skin tones would get ruined. It was really, really difficult to make it look good in post, just because the whole image became like really, really soft and muddy. I still wanted that diffusion, but I didn't want to sacrifice those moments or have to worry about shooting into direct light. So that's why I'm going towards the black satin kind of filters. They're just a little bit less diffused, but they still take that digital edge off. And if I want to pull even more diffusion, more bloom, stuff like that, I can always do that in post through DaVinci or Dehancer or whatever that might look like. But thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you learned something from this video about how to make your wedding film's image look better. And yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.